Hi, this is a difficult topic to share about, but I feel like it's one that I needed to hear and I don't know if it's out there. So I wanted to make a video on it and open the discussion in the comments if you have anything that you want to share that you think may help others. You may be wondering why the screen is black. I've decided to do that for a couple of reasons. One of them is I normally have a pet on here so you can just watch them while I talk, but I feel like that might be distracting me from what I want to say, and I really want the words to be what's important today. Also, I don't want to appear on screen. I know I'm going to be crying. I'm going through a rough time, and I've always made this channel more about my pets, so I don't want to be on screen. So I hope that's okay. And let's just have this heart to heart talking and sharing as well if you have anything you think will help me or other people. This video is a little bit about loss, losing a pet, but it's mainly about losing an entire type of pet, which I feel is a whole other level of loss. I know you might be wondering, what do you mean? And so I would say an easy example is you may hear people say, I can never have a dog again. That's a common one that we hear, like as people get older or feel that they can't take care of a dog in the capacity that they used to. I think that's a common one that we would tend to hear people say. I guess this is kind of technically a podcast, so if this type of format is something you like, please let me know. It would be easier for me to make than the types of videos I normally make on this channel, so definitely let me know. But I'm going to open this podcast and close this podcast with my mom's story because I think it might bring people hope. My mom was raised in a family that loved animals. I don't even know what all she had because I obviously wasn't alive back then. But I know that they had chickens, budgies, dogs, cats. And if you're lucky enough to spend your life with all sorts of animals, you tend to kind of gravitate towards certain ones that just fit you the best, you know? And in her case, it was cats. She was a cat person through and through, and for the rest of her life, she wanted to have cats. My mom and dad met in college, they dated, and they ended up getting married. And my dad, because my mom was a cat person, obviously he had to become a cat person too. I remember his favorite was Henry, who he said Henry would wait until we were awake. And then when he saw us wake up, he would come get on the bed with us. And it was just like a fond memory my dad had of Henry. And Henry lived for so very long that I ended up getting to meet him, and I didn't even exist at this time. So, anyway, after my parents were married, they were living in a trailer, I believe. And my dad kept thinking, why am I getting sick all the time? I keep getting colds. He thought that the windows weren't sealed well in the trailer and put tape around, I guess. I don't know how many windows he did, one or all of them, I don't know. But it didn't work. And not only that, but it got a lot worse for him. I believe he got so sick that he was taken by ambulance to the hospital. Eventually, they realized that he was deathly allergic to cats. So here is my mom, who believed for the rest of her life she would always have a cat, married to a man who could literally die if she had a cat. And unfortunately, she was like, I will never have a cat again. I can't have a cat. She was completely committed to my dad. In fact, he ended up having a chronic illness and she cared for him. So I don't want anyone to feel bad with what I'm about to share because it's kind of funny. My mom actually told my dad, and she would tell other people this, that if she had known before they got married, she was not sure which one she would have picked. My mom was devastated, and they obviously had to rehome their cat. And she thought she would never have a cat again. That's the type of loss that this is about. But I want to come back to my mom's story at the end because in it, there is hope. And I think that's what we all have to hold on to when we face this kind of loss, is a little bit of hope. This is where the story becomes personal for me, and I'm probably going to have to take little breaks to cry because I am crying, but I'm trying to talk over it right now. Unfortunately, I lost my parrot. I thought that I would have her for all of my life. I've had her since I was in school, and with parrots, you don't really know their lifespan. It's just so vague because they haven't been pets for as long as cats and dogs or guinea pigs, where we have a really known age range for them. With parrots, it's all over the place. So I thought that we would die about the same time. And that's what I hoped for because she was my buddy. I think too, when you have a pet for that long in your life, you just start to take for granted that they're always going to be there, but that's not how life works. And she's just gone. The reason this is a huge loss to me, too, is that if I take my age right now and add my parents' age on to my current age, I don't have enough years left to live to take care of a large parrot. In a moment of weakness, I went and looked at a rescue site and I was reading the parrots' profiles and looking at their ages and thinking, okay, since they're already old, they have less time in their lives to live. But at the same time, parrots and people bond to such a degree. It is a lifetime bond that I felt kind of like if I had a husband who passed away and I went right out and decided to get married again. Is one of those things where I just feel like I would be betraying her right now. And I just feel like I don't have the lifetime left to give to a parrot, but I also do not have the household situation to give to a large parrot. Part of the problem is I like cats and I like prey species. When you have a mixed household like that, you have to do so much to make it work. And we have since I was young, but with birds, it's really hard. I will say when I have taken a little kitten from a shelter and introduced them to guinea pigs or rabbit type sized animals in their cage, they did well and they learned to ignore them. I found that with 3 different cats, so it seems to be pretty consistent. But with cats and birds, I have not had the same sort of success. And unfortunately, part of the problem was Spanky loved animals. So if one of the cats escaped to her area of the house, she would go to the bottom of her cage and try to get their attention. And obviously, they were trying to go after her, so that was not a safe combination. The living situation with having this mix of a predator-prey home was basically in zones with moving the pets around each for about half of the 24 hours in a day. But I felt like Spanky was getting the short end of the stick because the cats were with each other even when they had to be away for her sake. The arrangement we ended up in happened naturally in Spanky's life, but it's not a situation I would want to willingly bring a new bird into. I don't want to make it sound like Spanky was living in a basement or a closet or anything like that. She was in the living room, but it just wasn't where all of the hustle and bustle during the day was. When I realized she was terminally ill, she had to be with us. And I was amazed that the cats accepted her. It was just amazing. It was like they set aside this predator prey relationship and they decided to accept her. Now, I was with them, like, I had to be around constantly and make sure that everything was safe for her. But it was just a beautiful time of seeing all my pets being able to be in the same area. And I just loved it so much. And I realized that a parrot deserves to be where it will be getting the most attention at all times. And I already realized that before she got sick, but I think seeing her sick and able to be around and fully involved was amazing. Not only did I say goodbye to my parrot when she passed away, but I said goodbye to parrots. So it is a loss upon a loss, a really sad and difficult thing. because I have had parrots since I was young. My very first one was a budgie, and it's sad. There are so many things about them that are so incredibly special. For example, Spanky had named me and she said things in context. She was so incredibly smart and so sweet and precious, and I miss her so much. And I'm not just missing her, but also I don't think I'll ever have that relationship or that type of relationship again. I wanted to share 5 different things that I feel can help when you face this type of loss. The first thing is, I think it's important for us to acknowledge that it is a loss, to mourn what could have been, what you wanted, and what won't be. For example, in my case, I thought that I would live out the rest of my life with my bird. She was just always in my future thoughts. So I'm mourning the fact that my bird is not a part of my life anymore. Not just the loss of her, but the loss of having a parrot in my life. So if you can find people to talk to, it may be online because your specific type of loss may be something that your friends don't understand. But if you can find someone who has a good listening ear and will listen to you and let you talk and mourn and just really know that it is a real loss in your life to lose a type of a pet. The second thing I think is important is to be honest with yourself about what you can handle when it comes to this type of animal. For example, if you have friends who love dogs, is it going to be hard for a while to see their photos that they share? If you're subscribed to YouTube channels about parrots and you just lost your parrot and are never getting a parrot again, do you really want to be subscribed to those channels? Be honest with yourself. In my case, it was really hard, but I decided that I love parrots so much that I want to make sure that I don't cut them out from my life and that I hopefully can enjoy them in other ways. One of the examples is I went in a pet store and I watched the baby parrot that they had for so long because he or she was just so happy and full of joy and playfulness. It was really healing in some ways to see a baby animal and kind of think about when my parrot was a baby and so full of life and silliness and how happy she was. Another thing I did was I had switched her over to some senior food that was seed. She was a pellet parrot, but I switched her over to a seeded type pellet diet. And there was a lot left over when she passed away. I decided that a way to honor her was to slowly put her food outside for other animals to enjoy and to kind of say goodbye because I don't know if I'll ever have parrots again. I wasn't going to hold on to her food for a future parrot. I just felt like it was a way to let go of something of hers while honoring her memory. The third thing that helped me was writing a memory book. I knew that Spanky was passing away, so I had time to write the book while she was sick and try to remember to back before she was sick and all the fun things and happy things I wanted to remember. And she liked being talked to, so I was able to even read her some of the stories, which was really special. Now, this book was originally pretty much going to be about her, but I actually ended up writing about my other 2 parrots that I had, and I think at least 3 of my parents' parrots, stories that they had shared about theirs. So the book ended up being about parrots in general in my life and in my parents' lives, just a nice way to remember them. If you write a book on your computer and you save it as a PDF, there are ways to print it as a half-fold book, so you can make a nice little book. I even made mine into a hardcover with pictures of Spanky and so many stories and memories, and it's something I can pick up anytime I need something tangible because I think it really helps to have something tangible when you face a loss. So anytime I'm missing parrots in general or specifically Spanky, I have that book that I can look at. A fourth thing that may help is having a framed photo of your pet or the type of pet that you're not going to have anymore. I could tell when Spanky got sick that a friend was really wanting to print some sort of photo of Spanky for me, and I was like, no, 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 please don't do that. The reason is because I'm really, really sentimental and photos just make me sad. I've lost both of my parents and I really have a hard time even looking at photos of them. And I just felt like I'm probably going to walk around in the house and every time I pass this photo, I'm just going to feel sad and start crying. And that's the way I felt a photo would make me feel. The funny thing is, as soon as I lost my bird, I was like, I want to have a photo of my bird framed. And what I realized was I could put the photo away somewhere where I have to seek it out in order to see it. So it's not going to trigger sad memories of my birds so much as that it's there for a comfort for me when I need it. I put it in a curio cabinet and it's in a spot where I have to go and look for this photo in order to see it. I also put a copy in that book that I mentioned that I can just look at when I want to. If you're also someone who has a sentimental nature and you cry at the drop of a hat, and a photo would be too much to have out in a place where you're going to see it all the time, I just wanted to mention that this is a thought for how you can have a photo without it being something that is just going to make things harder for you. The fifth thing I wanted to say is I think it's so important to not let go of hope, even just a tiny little sliver of hope that maybe something will change someday and you can have that type of animal again. As an example, with me, I sometimes think, okay, maybe I'll have a budgie one day. They're not the same. I've had a budgie and it's not the same as a larger parrot, but it's still a slight bit of what my parrot brought to me and a way that I could have a little bit of that back. I want to close with my mom's story because it had a happy ending. After my parents found out about my dad's cat allergy, they did not have cats for a while. And I don't know when he took them, but he got allergy shots for cats. They really, really helped him. My parents initially had outdoor cats, with the first one being when I was a little kid. So I always remember having a cat, except for a short time when we did not. So our first cats were outdoor cats, and that was how they figured out how to have cats. But I know that's controversial, and in the end, they had an indoor cat that lived just in a part of the house where my dad wasn't quite as often in order to help with keeping the dander a little bit lower. But in the end, yes, my mom, who thought she would never have cats ever again and was questioning her life choices, ended up living out the rest of her life always having a cat. And I wanted to end on that happy story because maybe it will be how ours end too. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm so sorry if you're going for this type of loss. If you have any suggestions or ideas, please leave them in the comments. And in order to help other people find this, if you could please leave a like, subscribe, do anything to interact. It does help with the algorithm, and my videos don't get seen too well, so I just wanted to ask that you do that if you enjoyed this. Thank you so much. Bye.